Hi everyone, I hope you're well. My name is Robert Scardina, and today we are going to discuss current state mandated assessments and their role in education. Let's get started. Here are the objectives we'll be covering today. First, the history of high-stake assessments in public schools. Second, events that led to high-stakes testing. Third, justification of the mandated assessment in education. And finally, components that all work together to make up the district's balanced assessment program and state mandated assessments. Here we go. So who initiated standardized testing in the United States? From what I gather, it is this gentleman right here. His name is Horace Mann. He was the Secretary of Massachusetts State Board of Education from 1837 to 1848. Now, by the looks of this picture, this gentleman looks like he would really love a formal assessment. It looks like he would read one before he went to bed at night. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm sure he's a great guy. But this is what he went to Europe, and he found out that written assessments are superior, or he felt they were superior. And here are two reasons why. One is to collect data for student performance, and the other is to collect data for teacher accountability, making sure the teachers are doing their job and making sure the students are performing well. The events that led to high-stakes testing. Here's a few. I think there is a few more, but let's just hit the big ones here. A Nation at Risk report during the Reagan administration. It felt the education system was at risk and they needed to adopt new standards with more rigorous objectives. Second, No Child Left Behind. The United States felt like they were not being able to compete with other countries education-wise, and we needed to hold the schools accountable for student progress regardless of upbringing, meaning everyone gets a fair education regardless of their lifestyle. And then we get to Common Core 2008, ensuring all students graduate from high school with the skills and knowledge necessary to succeed in college, career, and life, regardless of where they live. All right, this slide's a little off topic, but I think it needs to be addressed because this is what a lot of people are probably thinking during this presentation. Has high-stakes testing been successful? I'm going to share this little bit of information with you. If you start Googling this and researching this, you will go down a major rabbit hole of different opinions and theories about high-stakes testing. But let me address what I feel are some important factors in high-stakes testing not being successful. Okay, factors for poor testing scores. Poverty, poor living conditions, multiple absences, learning disability, poor instruction from a former teacher, and honestly, unmotivated students. You put them in front of a high-stakes test and they just don't care. So these are just things to consider. Once again, a little bit off topic, but I think it's something important to address in how we motivate these students to become successful and be able to pass these tests. I would like everybody just to look at this slide for a little bit and tell me your opinions on it. And then obviously I'll give you mine. There's a student writing on the chalkboard, high stakes test, develop a love of learning. Obviously this kid isn't happy and somebody from the Department of Education is over him. Now, do high stakes tests develop a love of learning? No, but as instructors, I think we can address students in a way where they do love to learn and keep them motivated, and then they can do well on these high-stakes tests. What strategies can we use to assist instructor and students with district assessments and state-mandated assessments? In this county, I think one thing that works really well is something called scope and sequence. And let's break this down a little bit. Scope being the content that needs to be covered, and sequence being in the order that they're presented, that the information is being presented. I'll give you a few examples of this in the next slide. Hold on, looks a little technical, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, here's a mathematics scope and sequence for kindergarten, Maryland College, and career readiness standards. As you can see at the top, count to 100 by ones and tens is the scope. And as you move down, it's the sequence that it should go in. And if you look over to the right, it has the quarters of school as they progress, and they should go, you introduce, you practice, you master, and most importantly, you reinforce. Another thing to bring up is, in our county, both math teachers teaching kindergarten at different schools, different sides of the county, need to be using this. So all students are on the same page and they're getting the same education. On to mathematics scope and sequence for grade 1. I think it's important to point out this looks getting a little bit more complicated, but that's how it works. Kindergarten students learn the very basics, and then they can proceed on to grade 1 and hopefully practice, master, and learn the grade 1 math and career readiness standards. Last example of scope and sequence. Once again, introduce, practice, master. Students need to learn these things. I can't, as being a parent, not a teacher of these classes, it just seems so important, especially, I'm going to say, kindergarten through maybe 5th grade. This is just my opinion. It is so important that kids understand these math concepts, because if they don't grab these math concepts at this time in their life, as they progress through school, they're going to struggle if they don't have a solid understanding of them. And once again, let me reiterate by saying the purpose of these as well is so all teachers, are, even if they're in different buildings or schools, they're all on the same page, so everyone is getting the same education. And I think that's what it really boils down to with the standardized testings and these standards, is you want everybody to have a fair shake at education, and everybody's learning the same thing. And then you can really take this data and see, as a nation, I guess you could go from a county to your district, state, and see how everyone's doing. Easier said than done, of course. And all this leads up to benchmark testing. Once again, should be same test, even if it's at a different school. You follow this scope and sequence, should make an easy transition for students to take these benchmark tests to see how they're progressing. What strategies can we use to assist instructor and students with district assessments and state mandated assessments? Here's another one. I think it's very important. Collaboration. We have Southern High School and we have Northern High School. Now, maybe you won't see eye to eye during the football game since we're rivals, but as teachers on different sides of the county, you need to work with each other to make sure that you're all on the same page, meeting these benchmarks, understanding the scope and sequence, and see what ideas work, what works for you, and how are you doing this certain unit of study. And also, I think collaboration, students working together, collaborating with each other and helping each other learn is also a very important factor with assistance in these district assessments. Here's a little, here's a few cartoons here. Not trying to get political or anything, but I think it is, they do make valid points. What did you learn in school today? And it just has a student with a key code for a test. And the one to the right says, I was going to teach them the meaning of life, but it wasn't on the test. And I think it's important to point out it's a balance. It's a balance. You need to get them ready for these standardized tests, but you also need to teach them life lessons and find different methods of learning so they can achieve their goals. All right, informal assessments. Let's talk about them. I have a list of a few things here. I think the point I'm trying to make with this is, people talk about teaching to the test, but as instructors, we can't just make them take quizzes on the computer or take hard copies of tests, and that's all you do. You need a way to assess how they're doing and progressing with other methods. Honestly, more fun methods to keep them engaged. Question and answer, just having a discussion. Kahoot, if you ever played that game, it's a great game. Students love it. Physical demonstrations. Get off that smartboard for a little bit and actually show them something physical that they can touch and they can relate to. Even flashcards, that's old school, but it works really well. Informal assessment, so important to keep kids going, and then hopefully get them ready for that state mandated assessment, and they'll be successful. And finally, thank you for listening. I just wanted to use this last slide. It's a quote from John Henrik Clarke. A good teacher, like a good entertainer, first must hold his audience's attention. Then he can teach his lesson. So important. If you do not have a student's attention and you do not use different methods of teaching, such as informal assessments, it's going to be very difficult to keep kids engaged. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.